Frankmeisters. I forgot to push live when I did the intro. I was like, oh boy, here we go. Good evening, Frankmeisters. What is going on, people? It's been a minute. Been a little over a week since I've been on, and I've got a good friend of mine, Miss Deb from True Crime Notebook. I asked her to come on tonight because she's very popular in the YouTube community, and her face hasn't been out there in a while. So I thought, well, let me bring her on. You know, me and Deb speak just about every day, guys. We throw ideas at each other, discuss things, along with Miss Purdue, my administrator from Facebook, Amy Lynn, and Angela Lively. We all speak on a daily basis on stuff. So I thought I'd bring Miss Deb up, and we're going to discuss some of the motions that were filed the last couple of days, guys. But first, before we go anywhere, I want to go through and give shout outs to the people in the chat. What's going on, Rescue All Dogs? Tisha Latora, Carol Murray, Beth Gonzalez, Diamond Eyes, good to see you. What's up, Four Pit? Wanda from Missouri, Indy Pam Homegirl, Night Shadow, Mustang, Miss Deb, that's not you, is it?
No.
CJ Mack, James Powers, Sloopy, nice to see you. Mandy Ray,
Sloop.
Melissa, See-Through, Teresa, nice to see you. Lisa, Pamela, I should say. Colette Henson, Julian. There's Deb. Who else we got in here? Janet Gregory, Thomas, while he's at work. He's listening in.
Hey,
What's
Thomas.
up, Shane? Anybody want to give shout outs to Miss Deb? Say hi before we get into all this stuff. Well, it's not a whole lot of stuff, but just a couple motions. But yeah, me and Miss Deb were talking about this yesterday. We noticed there was motions filed by Murder Sheet, and we were just throwing ideas around what this could have been about. And one of the things that we talked about was it possible that Keegan had told them something when they interviewed him, and it was edited out of there, and they turned it over to the Carroll County prosecutor. Well, I was laying in bed last night, and I was like, man, I don't want to speculate on that. So I set my alarm clock for 8 o'clock this morning, got up, made my phone call, and got the documents immediately from where they're from the court. Let's just put it that way. I got them from the court.
Mm-hmm.
But then I laid back down and got up, and I had a bunch of errands to run. When I got home, I was like, damn, I forgot to post all this stuff. So I went ahead and posted everything. Hey, D, hope you're feeling better. Lisa.
Hey, D.
So I got the documents. I set everything up, and I called Miss Deb to invite her on, and that's what we're going to talk about. So let's get at it, guys. Give me a second. Let me pull this file up. Over here.
Hi to everybody out there.
Uh-oh.
I'm watching the crawl here, but
there we go.
Might not be able to respond to everybody.
All right, give me a second. I'm going to share the screen. Share screen. Windows. Share. Share. All right. Let me know, everybody, if you can see that just fine, or do I need to expand it out? I'm trying to figure it out on the bottom of this thing. Uh-oh. Where is my...
It's kind of blurry.
There we go. Can you see that now, Deb?
It's somewhat blurry on my end, but that's okay.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and start reading from the beginning. As you can see, the state of Indiana, Carroll County versus Richard Allen. This is part of the motion that Murder Sheet filed yesterday. Verified request for access to court records excluded from public access. Come now, Intervenor Mystery Sheets LLC, doing business as Murder Sheet. By counsel Kevin Greenlee, and respectfully request access to court records excluded from public access pursuant to Indiana Access to Court Records Rule 9B. In support of this request, Intervenor provides the following. On April 28, 2023, a letter was filed with the court. As of the dating of this filing, this letter remained confidential. Why is it? Therefore, thereafter, on May 17, 2023, the defendant filed its verified motion for temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction. From the chronological case summary, it appears this motion was filed without an access to court record form identifying the specific grounds for exclusion, see ACR 5B. Nevertheless, this motion remains confidential. Afterwards, on May 19th, 2023, the state filed its notice of discovery with the defendant following a motion to suppress and motion to convert let bail hearing into suppression hearing. From the chronological case summary, it appears these documents were filed without access to court records ACR form identifying the specific grounds for exclusion. See ACR 5B. However, these documents remain confidential. I don't know why it's not letting me scroll up, but I can't read on all of that. Entrepreneur seeks access of the. There we go. Letter filed on April 28, 2023, the verified motion for temporary restraining order and preliminary injunctions. Notice of discovery, motion to suppression, and motion to convert let bail hearing into suppression hearing are the records should not be excluded from public access under ACR 5A, B, C, D, or E. See ACR 9B 1C. Okay. Now I got to go to the next one. Oops. All right. Well, hold on. That's not the right one. Give me a second here. What happened here? Give me just a second here.
All right.
I got to go. For some reason, I double copied it in my file for the same page. There's another page.
Such fun.
I know it. That's not one either. Don't tell me I accidentally. There we go. There we go. All right. What? There we go. From the chronological case summary, it appears ACR 5C, D, and E are applicable. Likewise, ACR 5B is applicable as an ACR form was not filed with the records entrepreneur request access to. Additionally, these records were not subject to exclusion pursuant to ACR 6. Similarity, these records were not subject to seal pursuant to Indiana Code 5-14-3-5-5. Moreover, pursuant to ACR 9B1, this request is verified and reduced to writing. Finally, the objective of this rule is to provide maximum public accessibility to courts, records, ACR 1, commentary. In fact, the rules state from the presumption of open public access to public or court records. Wherefore, entrepreneur respectfully requests access to court records excluded from public access pursuant to Indiana Access Code Records Rule 9B. Respectfully submitted, Kevin Greenlee. And that's it on that.
They've been busy.
Yeah, it's obvious.
Yeah.
So what do you think of that?
Well, I think that they're just fishing. I think that it's a fishing expedition to see if it's a broad seal on everything or a seal on each individual item, because they can't, it's not legal or lawful for them to do a broad seal. there has to be a seal on each item. And I think that they're fishing to see if they can find something
I mean, it
that's
does make
available.
sense. It does make sense to me, though. I mean, you can't say everything that's under seal is confidential.
Right.
And like me,
Yeah.
when you were talking back behind in the green room, I
Mm-hmm.
got word of a letter that was written. Well, actually, I did, and I think Murder Sheet brought it up in her podcast today. Somebody mentioned it to me. Apparently, there was a letter written by an inmate from Westville, where Richard Allen is being held at, and they
Mm-hmm.
wrote this prisoner wrote a letter to the court. And I wonder if that has something to do, and they found out about it and wanted to see if they can get their hands on it.
Did they indicate if that was a recent inmate?
I'm not really sure because I don't really listen to Murder Sheet a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just something that was passed along to me.
Yeah.
So, but it does
Yeah.
make sense. You know,
Yeah. Because
why would that be confidential?
unless there's something in there that he's heard,
Right.
that information he's privy to.
Right.
You know, obviously the first person that comes to my mind is Noe Amos, who goes by DeBird. So
Or
I don't know if it was
Three.
right. I don't know if it was from him or if this is someone new.
Well, the bird wasn't in Westville though.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
He was in Miami County with Keegan.
Okay, so this wasn't with Keegan. This was with Richard Allen.
Yes.
Okay, well,
Yes.
that answers that then. This is a new one. This is a new one.
Indy Pam said it might be about mistreatment, RA's mistreatment. I don't believe that at all.
I'm sorry, what was that? Say that
Indy
again.
Pam says this might be about RA's mistreatment. I don't see that
It
at
could
all.
be. No, I agree that it could be. I mean,
Well, yeah, there's always that possibility, but I mean,
it
there's
could
no
be
proof that he was being mistreated.
that we
Hearsay.
know of.
Right.
It is hearsay that we know
right.
of. However, if there are inmates that are like, I forget what they call them. They're like, they have special privilege. They're like almost like inmate police there.
Yeah.
I can't think of what the name is for it. So maybe it's from someone like that.
Right. But that just don't make any sense. I mean, but you know what? I do want to give props to Murder Sheet.
Yeah.
At least they had the cojones to step up and say, hey, it's almost impossible that everything you got is confidential. And I see where you're coming. They want to know if everything's confidential, because it's not. They've got a good point here. If it's not confidential, why are you holding it back from public access?
Right. And that benefits everyone in the media, not just murder sheets.
Right.
If it's opened up, you know, if all of that is unsealed or part of it is unsealed, then every person in media, everyone will have access to it.
What do you think is going to happen? Do you think
trustees? Thank you, Indy Pam.
Trustees. Yeah. Motive even said the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
It's going to be interesting to see what the judge because Richard Allen's attorneys are all for this. They want everything out in the public. We know that.
Well, I think that they do. I think they want to know what the prosecution has. And we talked a little bit about that in the green room back there. I'll just read the article to you guys. Okay.
Go ahead.
So this is about Allen's bond hearing, which is coming up on the 15th. The Delphi double homicide suspect is trying to prevent the jury from seeing evidence subpoenaed from Westville Correctional Center and his former employer, CVS. And we all have heard that. Richard Allen's motion to quash the subpoenas will be heard on June 15th. Originally, it was supposed to be the hearing on bond hearing on the 15th and the 16th. Today, the 16th was canceled because it is now going to be about this particular information. The date has been set aside for a bail hearing, but the special judge in the case converted it to a hearing for Allen's motion to suppress. The move means prosecutors won't have to show, now listen to very carefully, this move means prosecutors won't have to show any evidence against Allen during a bond hearing in an effort to show how strong their case is.
See, and I thought maybe if they were going to have the bond hearing, Nick McClellan was going to have to release something to show why. I mean, everybody's talked about it. How strong is the bullet evidence?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still kind of up in the air about that, because
Yeah.
there's going to be fights between both sides, who's right and who's wrong when it comes to experts.
Right.
And then I also was looking at the defense is wanting to suppress some of the witness statements because everybody knows the witness statements are jumping all over the place. 1 minute they're saying one thing, and then they're saying another thing. Then you got a couple are saying one thing, and then you got another one debunking what they're saying. And I'm just like when we listen. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something here about that. The discrepancies we're hearing are from different law enforcement, from Carroll County, some from FBI, some from Indianapolis Police Department. So I'm going to give you an example. When I woke up one night in the middle of the night and saw someone in my neighbor's trying to get in my neighbor's house, and she had been raped a year beforehand, and I called police, I was privy to, at some point, read all of the police reports of the policemen that were there that night, and each one of them had things incorrect and different. And so I think that's what we're seeing in a lot of cases there. I think that the FBI says, oh, well, they didn't, they got there at 1:00, and then Carroll County says, no, it was 1:30, and somebody else says 1:45. I think that's what we're seeing, and it's confusing to people if you've never been involved in a case, if you, haven't really sat and thought it through. I think it's confusing, and it makes it look like witnesses have testimony all over the place. When in reality, it's very possible that it's the person writing up the report that's made the mistake.
Right. Well, there's a prime example when the FBI did their PCA for Ron Logan search warrant. Nicole Robinson, the FBI agent who drew it up, said the girls were dropped off at the drop off at 1 p.m. And I'm like, oh no, there ain't no way she did that.
Right.
And then when you read the transcribed pre-lifetime conversations was going on, you heard one of the witnesses, even though they blocked her name and her face out, saying that she ran into BG around 2:10. And I'm like, man, what is going on here? Man, that just puts the timeline way off.
Yeah.
And then you got Kelsey saying she dropped the girls off at 1:38, but the Harvester store catches her car at 1:49. And I'm like, some of these facts need to get straight because it's very confusing. But I think a lot of us have done filtered out what was bad and what was good. So,
oh my goodness.
she's tearing stuff up. Yeah, she's tearing stuff up already. Just she ain't been online for a while, guys.
It was a picture frame. It just went fell. But yeah, so some of it could be like you ask a witness and they think, and then later they're like, oh, wait a minute, I got a phone call around that time, and they were able to pinpoint it. And some of it is just that the person writing up the report or the newspaper person or the reporter got it wrong.
I mean, just like this
every day.
Right. And see, I try not to really read a whole lot of news articles because they try to put their own spin on it just to get your attention.
Exactly.
And that's why, and just going back to the transcribed audio tapes, like the one individual said that she spoke to an individual said that the girls left the house at 11 a.m. And I'm like, well, whoa, hold on here. I said, now 11 o'clock's coming into the picture. And I said, there's no way. I said, that's what, 2.5 hours prior to the girls leave, though originally what they said they were leaving. And I'm like, man, something's not right here.
Right.
So
and that could be, a family member saying that's when they asked to leave. That's when they asked to go.
Right. Originally. And of course we know what happened from there.
I guess
go paint a desk, help me file some paperwork or whatever you want to do. So
right. I guess that leads me to saying that in working a case and investigating it, you want to work it backwards. So when you find out a piece of information, you don't want to take that information and say, oh, that's fact. I'm going to run this way with it. I'm going to run forward with it. What you want to do is you want to work it backwards to see if it fits in a timeline, to see if there are any other statements that corroborate that. You've got to work it backwards. And I think we're a lot of YouTubers that aren't really, they don't have experience in this area. A lot of people who just are watching are getting confused as they hear something and then they run forward with it.
Let's see, Lakeside made a comment here. She says, I remember Hannah saying the witness's mother claimed her daughter was wiring, whatever that's supposed to say, on the time because she was home by 2 o'clock.
Wrong in the time.
Right. Well, I had spoke to the owner of the tapes, and she explained to me how that all worked out. She had spoke to the witness's mother. The witness was supposed to be home by 2 o'clock. So the witness might have misremembered what she had told her investigators. So we kind of try to pinpoint it down to somewhere between 1:30 and 1:45 when she allegedly ran into BG or walked by BG. Blaze, you on to somebody.
Yeah, and see, I think that's a prime example of how you get to the real information. As you know, we had a fact about that, and instead of you running forward with it, you went backwards and you talked to people in the know to see if you could verify it.
Right. I mean, because when I heard that, I was like, hold on. So I started going backwards. I said, this is not lining up with the times that we were given by LE. So that's why I contacted the owner of the tapes and I discussed it with her. And she said, no, she had to have misspoken because of according to the timeline that was originally set. So,
and if you have, it's great to have theories. I mean, to think outside the box. I'm all for that. But what you need to do when you have a theory is you need to put it to a timeline and say, is this possible? Could someone have gotten from point A to point Z, in 37 minutes and back 37 minutes later, committed a murder, done all kinds of things to, the crime scene, and then walked all the way back to their car? You have to see if that will fit in with any time frame. And if it doesn't, that can't be what happened.
So that's what I did. I'm like, hold on, 2:10. And the girls caught BG on the phone at 2:13. There is no way he could have hightailed it from the Freedom Bridge all the way to the 7th platform in 3 minutes. It's virtually impossible. It is impossible. I say it that way. It is impossible unless you're a track star and you can run your ass off pretty fast. And Richard Allen, that little short, pudgy, short-legged dude ain't gonna run. Being a smoker, a drinker, so. It's people are just taking what they hear and thinking it's fact, like you said, and you can't do that. And that's why I try to stay quiet a lot and don't say a whole lot, because I watch people and what they're saying. I'm like, man, they're putting this garbage out here and it doesn't match up with anything that's been put out for the last 6 years. You know, so, and it's just like the Muddy Bloody witness. I'm having a hard time believing that, because when me and Sloot did our thing the other night, he had like a little map that showed where possibly BG came out at. And we basically concluded he had to have come out around the cemetery area, crossed the road, and went behind the Mears property and the Harvester store. That's why nobody allegedly saw him. That's why I don't believe the Muddy Bloody witness at all.
And that would that would make a lot of sense with some things that I have heard, that there was video footage behind that Harvest store and that it was of his back, like he was walking away from it. So that would make some sense. I have heard that. That would make sense. I still think that the Muddy and Bloody witness could be true. I tell you why. I stood at that gate a couple weeks ago looking at the Mears property, which is absolutely beautiful farm, by the way. I love that barn. I like that beautiful, huge red barn, striking.
Well, last time we went, we got to the drop-off point, and and the whole Mears family was up in their windows just staring.
Oh.
I'm like, oh my God. They were just staring. Like, what are you
Yeah.
guys doing? You
Yeah.
know? See, even I
It's
was telling Sleuth up to the same about the Harvester store. We know that there was one of the cameras is on one of the corners of the building. Okay. But with a business like that, you would think they would have cameras in the front of the building facing the CPS building. So if he came from around the back of that building, he still would have been caught
mm-hmm.
just coming
Mm,
across.
mm.
So is it
Maybe.
something? Is it what piece of evidence that they're trying to hide from everybody that we ain't heard from
Mm.
or heard about? Like the PCA, they didn't mention nothing about the Harvester store camera, but one time when it was Kelsey's car.
Uh-huh. I back to what I was getting ready to say. I still think it's very possible for the muddy and bloody witness to have seen him on that road and to seen him be able to tell that he was muddy and bloody, because I stood at that gate and cars drove by and I could see inside their car. I could see clothes they had on from them driving by. Right there in that area, the road's kind of narrow.
Uh,
And
but see,
you wouldn't be going that fast. And if you saw someone walking, you'd slow down because you wouldn't want to hit them.
let me ask you this: what would your opinion be about this? Do you think the dumbest criminal in the world that just committed 2 murders would be walking out on a major county road, knowing people are driving up and down, and if you're covered with blood and everything like that?
Well, he had to at some point because he had to get back to his car.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. He probably hightailed it out of there and crossed the street and went behind the Mears in the Harvester store.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking the dumbest criminals in the world would not be caught on a road bloody. I mean,
well,
unless they had a state of psychosis, if that's the case.
That's very possible. When something like that's murder has been committed, there's probably I've read that there's a surreal feeling for the murder. Sometimes the murderer is terrified. That's the first reaction is terror.
Mm-hmm.
And then they start reliving it, and that's when the satisfaction of the memory comes back. But at the same time, I mean, you said it yourself when you were by the Mears gate that the Mears were looking out. I don't think he would come out right there.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, I think he'd stay in the woods for a little bit until he got up the road. But at some point, he had to cross the road, and that could be where the muddy and bloody witness happened to come across,
And see, my whole problem with that whole scenario is that you have Derek, you have Tara, you have Cheyenne. There was another couple that were there at the Mears parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
So if they didn't see him, that's an indication to me that he had crossed the road and took off across the road where the Mears farm is and ran that field to where he wasn't seen.
It's possible.
Unless he came out right when the witness saw him. That's the only thing I can think of.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've never killed anybody, and hopefully I'll never have to. But I could see the fear and being scared and terrified at what I had just done and went straight into psychosis.
Yeah.
Like, damn, what am I going to do? Freaking out, But I just don't think he had enough common sense to walk on 300 and stay on 300. I just don't think that happened.
Yeah, I don't think he stayed on it. I just think that it was an unlucky timing for him that person may have come along in a car right at the time when he needed to cross that area, or had a short area where he had to walk.
So do you think Richard Allen actually killed him, or you just think he's the kidnapper?
I think he did the deed.
It's starting to look like that.
Yeah.
It is starting to look like that.
I think he kidnapped him. I mean, I have a theory, and I've never said it before, except to Purdue. She knows what it is.
Go ahead. Free for all on my channel.
Yeah, I'm just not sure. But I guess I'll say it, and it is a theory, and understand it's a theory. But my theory is that, I don't know why he did it, but I do think that he did, kidnap them, take them down the hill. I think that is possible. He told them to disrobe at the bottom of the hill. That's where he intended to do what he was going to do. Maybe even just take pictures of them for profit or blackmail of some kind. I don't know. Maybe he intended to molest them. I don't know. But I think that at some point they ran. And if it were me, I know that they knew Ron Logan. They'd been on his property. They pet the horses. They knew Mr. Logan. And I think that I would be thinking, I've got to get somewhere where someone can help me. And I think they took across that creek to run to his house for help.
And he caught up with them.
He caught up with them. I think he had injured one of them and made the other one help him get that person up the bank.
The bank, right.
Into the area. And then I think while Libby was tending to Abby, he did her in. I'm just trying to say it nicely.
Honestly, I don't think Libby was the actual target. My reasoning is for that is because everybody know how spunky Libby was. Mm-hmm. She's a 14-year-old girl. She was in karate classes. She was a 200-pound, 14-year-old girl, and I think she just didn't take squat from nobody, and she wasn't going to put up with it. And I think that's the reason why a lot of people said that she took most of the blunt of the trauma, because she was a fighter. That's my opinion. But remember when we had the discussion about the fantasy kill?
Yeah.
When a fantasy kill is when somebody has the thought, well, what would it be like to kill somebody? So they went out and did their fantasy to see what it was like, just out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. I mean, that does happen, because I've watched plenty of documentaries where interrogators are talking to people that killed somebody, and they've asked, why did you do this? I just wanted to experience the feeling of killing somebody. Yeah. That was their reasoning. Yeah. And to me, that's a fantasy.
Well, that reminds me of Robert Ives. I get really confused with him because he talked about that there were possibly 3 signatures, but a signature is something, a repetitive something that a murderer does at each murder. We don't know that Richard Allen had ever committed any other murder. So that confused me. So I think he was a little confused. I think he was trying to talk about staging and posing.
The staging part to me would be moving the girls, like the search warrant Ron Logan said, the clothes in the creek, if there was clothes in the creek, because we don't know if those photos were legit or not. I mean, that could be part of the staging. So, and I'm just like, Robert Ives really confused me. It almost, to me, when I was talking to him, it was like somebody got to him to change his story, to change the fact that he said that. And then all of a sudden, of his videos, that part's edited out of there.
Yeah.
And,
well, I just, again, going back, it couldn't be signatures because Richard Allen doesn't have, that we know of, more murders. And that's what a signature is. A signature is something that a murderer does at every murder. It's something they do. Maybe he meant, I don't know. I think he was confusing it and calling it, and he was meaning staging and posing. That's what I think. Staging is something that you do to make it look like something that it's not. And posing is something that a killer does because they have a fantasy about it, that they've thought about it. They've wanted to do it.
A good prime example of a signature, go back to Nicole Bowen and Ray Harnish. How were they murdered?
Yeah, with a choking.
Strangulation. Right. That's a signature of a killer. Right. That's his signature. But the staging part, like I said, I think the staging part was part where they said the girls were moved. And if those clothes were legit in those photos, that's staging. Just throwing them in the creek, that's the staging part. I don't believe none about this damn big old teddy bear and all that. And I've heard other things that I really don't want to bring out on here that
Yeah.
is disgusting to
Yeah, I
me.
don't know. I don't know what the signatures were. I mean, obviously, it could be the fact that are not signatures. Now I'm doing it. What the staging, or the posing was. I've heard a lot of rumors. I've heard carvings of a letter or a rune.
Yeah.
We know that her body was covered up with sticks and twigs. Libby's was. So, that in itself, that's a staging, possibly.
Thank you. Just for a moment. Thank you to the individuals that just sent me money to my Cash App. Much appreciated. I know you're watching. I prefer not to give your names out, but thank you.
All the things that we've heard could be the staging and posing. But
Right.
We don't know that any of them are true. We don't know.
Right, exactly. And it makes me wonder if later on down the road, Richard Allen decides to go ahead and spill the beans. We're never going to know what these staging props were, the signatures. We're never going to know that if it doesn't go to trial.
I see. At first we won't, but it'll come out at some point because people can't be quiet. I think we won't at first. It'll, if he were to, plead guilty, whatever, we wouldn't know at first, but eventually that information will seep out. I mean, look at all the stuff that's seeped out that we know about already.
Right. And I think a lot of that's been taken care of, the leaking, because we haven't seen any leaked documents here in a while or photos or anything. So I think somebody's put their foot down and took care of that situation.
Yeah.
Especially a gentleman out of California. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He goes by Stephen Curry now.
Yeah.
So, he was in my chat a couple of weeks ago and he wanted to pull that crap. And I said, I already know who you are. Just by what you're saying in the chat. You're basically telling everybody who you are, but you're using a different name.
Right.
So now.
Exactly.
Are you still contemplating on Keegan Kline being tied? The Keegan Kline, I think he's just a person of circumstance. The reason why I say that is because, like we talked about in the green room, if he was completely involved with this case and set this whole thing up, I'm pretty sure that Nick would have went to, what's the prosecutor's name in Miami County?
It's Jeff Sinkovich.
Yeah, he would have went to Sinkovich and say, look, if I got information that I verified, will you work with Keegan on cutting some time for helping out on this case? I think that would have been done already.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know about that. I think that he is connected in some way.
Well, I totally agree. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, I don't think he was there. I mean, I just don't think he was there. I don't.
I don't know that he was there. I think that maybe something he owned that he gave to Richard Allen was there. I've speculated that, possibly it was a phone. That's why he was worried about how long fingerprints last, because his fingerprints might have been on whatever he gave to Richard Allen. That's a possibility. It's also a possibility that his Dropbox was involved, that he was giving Richard Allen pictures or connections. I've always wondered too, back in December of 2016, Anthony Schatz friended or liked Libby's post, right?
Are you talking about December 2016?
December of 2016, right?
Yep.
So I've often wondered if possibly Keegan was trying with another one of his alter egos to get pictures from her and he wasn't successful. And then that's why the Anthony Schatz profile came along. And maybe his other profile was the one that was bugging Libby that she asked Max to help her with.
And that's what Max was talking about that night when he was being interviewed.
maybe. I mean, that's just a thought.
Because he
It's a
did bring up
possibility.
that Libby had a problem with the older gentleman in Delphi there,
Mm-hmm.
trying to catfish her.
Yeah, and it also the Blaze Jones person that people talk about. I mean, as far as I can look and find, there was only one entry where the Blaze Jones said hi, and she said, "Who are you?" And that was pretty much it. So
Wow.
I don't know, but that last name Jones is interesting.
Blaze Jones. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a alternate name to me.
Well, it is a real name. It's a real person, and that is actually his name. We've looked into that. But the last name Jones um, is a friend of Libby's. One of her little friends has that same last name, so that's kind of interesting to me.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a boy. That's something I need to look into now.
Yeah. Yeah.
See what that was all
So,
about.
yeah, may not be anything, but it's just peculiar. Yeah.
Right, right. But somebody made a comment to me about the shack and two of the family members today
What was the comment? What was that about?
that is not to be mentioned in the documentary.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Say that again.
In the transcribed audio,
Mm-hmm.
they were told that they could not bring up the shack and 2 of the
Mm-hmm.
family members.
Yeah, I thought about that, and I mean, I don't know why. And here's how I think. I always think, well, why would you say that? Like, in my first instinct was, I would say that because people were already accusing my son, both of my sons, my adopted son and my biological son,
Mm-hmm.
and they were already making accusations about a shack. And so maybe they just said, we're not going to entertain any of that nonsense.
Well, when I
You
started
know,
thinking about it, what if it all had to do with the meth and meth was being made in that shack?
what shack?
I don't know. It's either the one on the Mears property or the one on Ron Logan's property.
Other people say it's a one at Wilson Bridge. That's 37 minutes away by
Right.
walking. That's
Me and
it
you
would
talk
take
about this.
37. It would
Yeah,
take
me
you
and you.
37 minutes to walk to Wilson Bridge. Do whatever you're doing there. 37 minutes to walk back, and then kill 2 girls, and then stage and pose, and then walk back to your car. I don't know how that could work in that time frame.
I don't see that either. I don't
Yeah,
get it.
it doesn't make sense.
It almost tells me that Richard Allen was out there way earlier. If there was staging going on, what if there was staging going on prior to the act being committed?
I mean, I guess that's possible. But then I just don't think he was there earlier. I mean, I'm saying that I don't think anybody could have done something at Wilson Bridge, came back to the murder scene. I don't see how any of that fits together. That doesn't fit together. And I'm not saying that he was out there earlier. I'm saying I just don't think that Wilson Bridge was involved.
I had thought about that for a minute until I looked it up and see how far from the Monon High Bridge it was to the Wilson's Bridge, and I said, "There is no way.
Yeah.
There is just no way." After I thought about it, I said, "Well, that could be a getaway, yeah."
Yeah.
But to walk there and walk back, like you said, that's well over an hour in walk time. So, I mean, I'm just like, well, what's going to be interesting is to see what happens on the suppression hearing. I know that the suppression hearing, I want to see what they're going to try to suppress. I think they're going to try to suppress some of the witness statements. Honestly, I do. Because a lot of they're contradicting each other. Some of them are contradicting each other.
Yeah. Are you talking about the Richard Allen trying to suppress stuff or the prosecution?
Yes.
Well, I think he's trying to suppress his medical and psychological reports.
What about having access at the CVS to Sudafed? You know, that's one of the main ingredients in meth.
We do know that he absolutely, thank you, Purdue RN, she verified it for us. We know he was a pharmacy tech. We had a discussion about that in another chat, and
Oh
people were
yeah.
saying that he wasn't a pharmacy tech, but he was. And they helped count, they handed out at the window, all that kind of stuff. So I guess he could have had access to Sudafed. Yeah, for sure. We know there is a meth problem in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Meth makes you have heightened sexual issues that,
Euphoria. The
yeah,
euphoria effects. Yeah.
it's something that's possible. I mean, I
I'm
don't
not
doubt that.
I'm not proud of it, but I used to sell meth back in 1991. I lived in Arkansas. And don't get me wrong, guys. I was a young kid at that time and I didn't know any better. But I'm able to talk about it now because I knew I was wrong and I should have never been involved. I even got hooked on the stuff. And then my neighbor came to me, or actually my landlord came to me and said, look, I know what you're doing and I don't care as long as your rent's paid, but DEA is watching you. And the first thing I did the next morning, dumped everything down the toilet, got a bus ticket, and headed back to Indiana. And that was the last time I messed with that stuff.
Yeah. I just saw something in the chat. Doug Carter brought up The Shack and a book because he had just watched it. Kelsey had told him to watch it, I believe. They both watched it at any rate. And it's dealing with, it was about dealing with a murder that was committed on a child and about forgiveness. And he used that and then talked about, I believe you have a little bit of conscience left. I don't think it had to do with an actual building. I could be wrong. This is my opinion. I think it had to do more with that movie, the theme of it, and the fact that they had both just watched it. And he was trying to use that as a reference to
could the murderer be somebody that's religious and saying, hey, if we know you're religious, we know you got a little bit of dignity left.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I mean, I don't rule out that it could be meth involved at all, because we all know that, CSAM and meth and all that, it's like
all
this.
ties in together. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. And we do know that they were, cooking meth in that area. I will tell you something really interesting. When I was on It's a Criming Shame, we sent a lady, I'm not going to mention her name because I don't know if she wants it mentioned, but a lady that's still around the chats out to Delphi, to the trails, and she videotaped some of it. And she went to Ron Logan's door and knocked on his door, and he didn't answer. Well, we found out later it's because he was in the hospital with COVID, and he later died. But she said there was a really weird odor in that area, and she said it smelled like bacon cooking. And I have heard people say that meth can smell like that.
I see. I've never been involved with the cooking or making of meth. I always got the finished product when I was selling it. So I don't know what it smells like when it's being cooked. So
yeah. So maybe
if
I don't
want to be around
chat, me either. Maybe if someone in the chat can tell us if that's true. But I thought that was interesting that when she was on his property, that's what she was smelling.
And no, Lisa, I am not doing what you're saying there, because I've got sued by several people not to do that on the lives because it makes me look bad. So I quit doing that. I put my avatar on because I was smoking a cigarette and I didn't want people seeing me smoking while I was live. So that's why I do that. Yeah. And honestly, I've slowed way down, guys, when it comes to smoking weed.
No, that's good.
I'm just getting to the age where, it's pointless anymore. Yes, it helps with my pain and everything, but when it comes to me only making so much money a month on Social Security under the age of retirement, that money's got to stretch me 30 days to pay all my bills and everything. So I just to the point where I'm not even getting it anymore because I can't afford it.
Yeah. So one of the other things in the chat was they're talking about the Muddy and Bloody Witness, MR. And what I have heard, guys, is that people have the first name wrong.
Yeah. Me and you talked about that the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Let's see. What do we got going on here?
That is interesting, Kay. I'm reading your comment here. It's quite interesting that that happened. Maybe coincidence, but it's something to think about it. If you can, like I said, take that information, work it backwards, see if you can find a link.
There's my second favorite lady, Purdue.
Hi, Michelle.
Michelle O's in here?
Yep.
Wow. There's my administrator. This is Amy Lynn. Everybody
Hi,
say hello, Amy. She's one of our moderators too, guys. So she knows the rules. We won't talk about other creators on our chat in a negative way. And if you're caught, it's a warning. If you keep doing it, timed out. And the third time, you're gone. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be a hard ass or anything, but there's been a lot of bickering going on between channels here lately. And I don't want no part of that.
Me either.
You know, it's just like my name got brought up in something a couple of days ago just because somebody invited me onto their panel. I got chewed out for it again. So that's why I just try to stay away from the drama. And a lot of people ask, where you been? I just sit in the back and watch everything go on, you know. So I'm doing my work while watching everybody being goofballs and calling people out and things like that. I'm just not going to have that, you know. So that's the rules, guys. What's going on, Sleuth? Nice to see you, bud. Didn't even know you were in here.
Hey, Sleuth.
Still in here. Because he don't stick around very long. Boston Christian, nice to see you.
He's a busy guy.
Yes, he is. Who else we got in here? Any more questions? Anybody got any questions?
Purdue says, if this was a simple case, straightforward, I don't think Doug Carter would talk about this case being complex and tentacles. Absolutely.
There's no doubt. No doubt. Unless they're leading everybody astray to keep them speculating while they're really doing the real work.
Yeah. I don't see. Yeah. I don't think that would benefit them. And really, I don't know.
And Indy Pam says she thinks it was Richard Allen, or we all thought Richard Allen wrote the letter, the recent one.
We all thought, what did she say? We all thought what?
It says right on we all thought RA wrote that letter. And if it wasn't, it might be somebody that might have proof inside the prison that sent the letter that he's totally involved. Let's see what we got here. The letter, KF23 said, the letter was before the restraining order, probably related.
Letter was before the restraining order. Right.
Doesn't really matter where they put him. He's going to have the same problems regardless, just on what he changed with the loan. Exactly. You're absolutely true, Mustang. It doesn't matter. With these kind of charges, any prison you go to, you're going to have problems, especially when it comes to children. You kill a child, oh, man, I feel for you when you go to prison.
Right. I don't feel for him, but.
And I have reached out to some contacts with the news station. They're trying to find out if the news media attorneys have filed for cameras to be in the courtroom, and I'm still waiting on a response from that. So hopefully we'll have a response by Monday or Tuesday on that, because if it's not, there's not going to be any cameras in the courtroom. Okay,
so Boston Christian says, I've been in the country, smelled it cooking before, and it'll take your breath away. It's absolutely horrible, like a putrid chemical smell. So not like bacon.
I think doesn't she lives here in Indiana. Boston Christian does. I believe she does.
I don't know.
Let's see.
I don't know. I mean, Boston. I always thought she was in Boston. Hey, there's 4 pit bulls and a toy hauler.
Yeah, he's been messaging me all day. He calls me the clerk now, the document clerk.
Yep.
You know, I don't want to take all the credit because I'm sure there's other people out there that get them before I do, but I do my damnedest to try to get them as quickly as possible and try to present what I have before I go live, so everybody knows what I'm going to be talking about. So
yeah.
Let's see, digital. They know what prosecutor has via discovery. They want everything to know what the prosecutor doesn't have. See, I would have to tend to disagree because when they filed the motions to quash the subpoenas, they also filed that motion of notice of discovery, which told me that Nick has not given up everything to him.
Mm-mm.
So
Well, and from what I read a while ago, it's when it says a move means prosecutors won't have to show any evidence against Allen during a bond hearing. So I'm sure they have things that they haven't revealed yet. And
I'm starting to think that Nick might have the smoking gun and he's waiting to the last second to release it to give very little time to the defense to prepare for it.
yeah, I hope so. I hope he's got his ducks in a row.
Oh, I do too.
I wish he would ask for some help. And maybe he's getting help and we don't know. But, I mean,
as long as Slick Nick doesn't sleep good at night, I'm happy. You mean Rick or did you mean Rick for Pit Bulls? Because he knows Nick Nick personally.
Yeah.
Let's see the defense.
Ruckus says meth operations can be big or clandestine. Some you'd never know that they were there, but this case has nothing to do with meth or drugs in general, in my humble opinion.
The defense will try to suppress any and all damaging evidence. A good example would be Allen's own statement. See, that's what I was saying. Mm-hmm. I think that I can almost guarantee that the bullet is going to be one of them they're going to try to suppress. Mm-hmm. Guarantee it. We already know that. And his statement alone, they're going to try. I agree with that. They're going to try to suppress that too. Because that statement alone from Richard Allen, that's guilty. That's a guilty statement he made. So let's see what else. Speculation Room, good to see you.
I like that name.
Yes. Let's see, we got hybrid.
Somebody says meth smells like rotten eggs or sulfur or permanent solution if it's cooked. Shake and bake smells like burnt wiring or a motor.
Let's see, when I went out there the first time and you go up to the ravine, up to the cemetery, mm-hmm. you could see old bottles, plastic bottles, because a lot of them make that bathtub crank in Coke bottles. Just shake it up and let it sit for a while. So, Nick Hamilton, good to see you.
When you're walking up towards the bridge, you can actually see the bridge. You're at the point where you pass the little memorial on the left, mm-hmm. and there's a little path that leads back to a bench in the woods there, mm-hmm. on the right. Mm-hmm. I've often wondered if he was sitting on that when the girls passed.
Well, I mean, you got to remember, he said that he was on the platform looking at the stock ticker and the witness. We know who the witness is. Me and you discussed it. We already know who it is that actually saw this person on the bridge. She said when mm-hmm. she walked back, and this was like 1:30ish or so. Mm-hmm. And this is where I came up with the idea. What if BG was tracking them through one of the apps and knew exactly where they were? And
I think I said that.
And he hightailed it to the south end of the bridge and hid. And then when they came out onto the bridge and they got closer to him, he came back up past them, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. turned around. Because if you go back to the Abbey photo, and we've had so many people look at that, expand the photo out, you can't see nobody. Yeah. You can't see nobody.
Well, I think I said that, a while back too, that I think he was tracking him through the yellow app. But I'm saying at some point, once that first witness who saw him on the platform, we don't know where he went after that. But my theory is that he went back and went into that little path there and sat on that bridge. And so then when Libby and Abby passed by there, maybe they saw him, because people have always speculated that they might have had some, had seen him. Right.
Or contact with him, yeah.
Because the fact that Abby says, he's right behind me, isn't he? And Libby says, mm-hmm. So my theory is that he went back in that little path. Purdue and I looked at it a lot while we were there, and maybe sat down on that little bench and was waiting. because it's kind of off the beaten path. You're back in there.
Are you talking about the one that leads to Ron Logan's property? Is that little path?
No, it's on the right. If you're walking towards the bridge, it's just little, it's not even a path. It's just like a little, there's a sign there, and you have to look at my pictures, which are on my phone again.
I
There's
do
a sign there.
recall at one point in time, they had one of the geocaching boxes in the woods, just right outside the main path going to the bridge. You can just hop right over the fence and go to that tree to where it was. I wonder if that's where you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because
Maybe.
he
I'll
did
have to
say
look at my pictures.
he did say he went back and sat on the bench until about 3:30. But what bench is he talking about?
I think he's talking about the one.
Because if he was sitting at the Girard bench at the 505 trail, flannel shirt guy would have seen him sitting there.
Right.
DG would have seen him. Yeah, DG would have seen him.
I don't think he was sitting there till 3:30. I think he sat there until the girls passed him, and they got down far enough on the bridge that they couldn't come back. You know.
And another thing that just came to my mind when we was listening to the transcribed audio tapes, there was never a mention about of a person in black through that whole thing. So,
well, yeah, I will say that there were some little girls. There was the main young girl witness, and then a younger sister.
Yeah.
And I think that the main witness is the only one that actually looked up and made eye contact. The others just kind of glanced as he passed by, and so they probably just saw dark clothing.
Right.
Whereas she got a better picture. She got a better view. She looked right at him. So that's a possibility.
Look at the speculation room. The problem is the timeline has been created by the German family. I mean, it's pretty close to what they were saying. I mean, what, about a 10-minute difference from what the family says and what the Harvester store camera says? About a 10-minute difference. So you're not really, there's not much really of a gap there at all. So, yeah, I still believe there's a little kink in the timeline somewhere. I do believe that. I do believe there's a kink in the timeline somewhere.
Oh, Diana.
You must be way down there because I'm way up at the top.
Yeah. Yeah.
Richard Allen put himself on the bridge, his own words. That should weigh more than witness testimony. And they're talking about the Canada fires in the chat.
Digital.
Yeah, they're talking about it. Let's see what Hybrid says. Diamond Eyes, it's so crazy how they're talking about the fires. We're not talking about fires today, guys. We can do that another day. Lord. Here we go. Our key witness, Daniel Pearson, in my opinion. What do you think of Daniel Pearson?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't think he had anything to do with it. I think he gave probably some false information because he wasn't supposed to be there.
Yeah, messing around on his girlfriend.
Yeah. There have been so many. I mean, I've been following this case since day one, and Aspen and I actually did a show where we named all of the POIs, and there was 3 pages full of them.
Oh yeah.
Not single, like 3 columns of 3 pages. Everybody, and this is what happens: is people you don't know anybody. So the minute somebody's name comes up or somebody's face comes up that looks like them, then you go down that rabbit trail, the rabbit hole looking. Oh, there's somebody that looks like him. I'll tell you that I have a cousin that was killed. And I've told the story before, we weren't allowed to talk about his murder because they said they were getting ready to arrest someone, which they never did. And we weren't allowed to say that he was found. And during the middle of knowing that he was already gone and not being able to say anything, people at the Indianapolis Star Facebook page saw his picture as a missing person. And people in the public said, oh, that's Bridge Guy. He looks like Bridge Guy. And that was devastating to our family to not be able to defend him and say he was gone before Libby and Abby. He was gone in the fall of 2016. And it's just, people just jump to conclusions, and it's not out of meanness. It's out of an extreme desire to want to help.
Right. Right. And SP study for the Hoosier store camera footage may not have been seen before Ron Loveland. I don't know. I have a hard time believing that, because I can guarantee ISP, the FBI, Carroll County went to every direction they could to see if they could find cameras. That's one of your main objectives, is to try to get something on film that it could be evidence. So that's one of the first things they're going to do, is speak with the landowner, with the family, and look for cameras and see if they got anything on footage.
But would they have been thinking that he came from that direction at that time?
It's really hard to say. I mean,
yeah.
The problem is we don't know exactly what route he took to get out of there. That's the whole problem. And everybody's just making speculations on how he got out of there. And I mean, me and Randy and a bunch of us have talked about this. The easiest and the quickest way out of there is through the cemetery. I just don't see him walking back through the woods, through the trails, back up the trail to the Freedom Bridge, and he's taking a chance of getting caught. So you want to get away from people, from an area as quickly as possible without being seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, Digital. We already discussed that. That's not a fact. Yeah, they put it at 1 o'clock, but it's false. It's got to be wrong.
Yeah.
It has to be wrong, according to what the Harvester store camera said.
Right. Right. Purdue says, I agree. I think the complexity of this case involves CSAM, catfishing, and maybe even meth users under the bridge or in the area strung out on meth, witnessing it, or even participating.
Good point, Indy Pam. I, for one, never pay attention to the timeline because it varies depending on who's talking. That is a good point. We won't know the exact timeline until trial, if there is a trial. Let's see. I hope you're doing well tonight. Oh, we're talking to somebody else. I do respect. I have a hard time believing anyone would be dumb enough to walk down a main road, muddy and bloody. It doesn't make sense. I said the same thing, but you got to remember, the person might have been in psychosis and didn't realize that's what they were doing. Because I dated a girl for 5 years, and something triggered in her memory from her childhood, and she instantly went into psychosis. We had to put her in the hospital. It is the strangest thing I have ever witnessed, somebody going through psychosis. I was like sitting in the office with her and her mom and the psychologist, and she looked over at me and she said, I thought we were already married. I was like, we ain't married. I was like, something's wrong with her. We were never married. So I've experienced the psychosis, and it's something that I don't want anybody to have to experience, because it's not a good thing to sit there and experience and watch, because you think the person is literally losing their mind right in front of you. I'm not saying pulling their hair out crazy, pissed off, or nothing like that. I mean, they're really mentally screwed up at that point in time, and their brain's just going haywire, and they don't know what to think.
Right. Kelt is right. It doesn't have to be psychosis. They could have just been in shock. As I said, in reading about, people committing the first thing that they usually experience is fear or terror of what they've done. And then, of course, that goes into that feeling of euphoria that, they enjoyed it or whatever.
Well, we know your husband's a psychologist.
He might have just been in.
Go ahead. Sorry.
He might have just been in fear and wanting to get the heck out of Dodge.
Now, we know your better half is a psychologist. What does he think of all this?
He just listens and goes,
So he really doesn't have an opinion on.
He does. I'm not going to really say, because it's his professional opinion.
Right.
He can't really make a professional opinion. It wouldn't be right. But I will say that when I showed him the picture of Richard Allen, that his defense showed of him looking all,
Yeah.
disheveled, etc. I said, do you think that he has psychosis? And he said, well, here's the thing. You cannot prove schizophrenia, psychosis, or any other psychological issue by a picture, by looking at a picture. But what I can say by looking at is he looks like a man that's been under tremendous stress.
And I said that the first time I saw that picture. I said, you guys got to remember he was an alcoholic. And everybody's talking about, look at all that weight he's lost, and da 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 da. And I said, that's because of stress. And he probably went through withdrawals, alcohol withdrawals while he's in there. And he's lost a lot of weight. He's not eating correctly because of it. So he's going to look like that. I mean, my little brother was in jail for 6 months. And when he got out, he looked like a toothpick. And I'm like, my goodness, because he was stressing the whole time he was in there. And when you go to jail, they do not feed you like you're at a 4-star restaurant.
Right.
You better believe that. They're going to give you the minimum minerals and calories that you need to survive.
Well, and if he doesn't have anybody putting money on his books, he can't
get
buy extra food. He gets what they serve him, and that's it. Michelle O has a great comment. I love this. Said he might have had to choose between the car witness seeing him or all the others starting to show up to search for the girls. So he might have had a limited choice trying to get back to his car. That's very, very good, Michelle.
Yes, I like that. Good job, Michelle. What's going on, Grizz? Tech Death. Nice to see you guys.
That's critical. Hey, Tech Death.
That is critical thinking, honestly. That's
critical thinking.
Let's see, Lisa, I heard it was a motion detector triggered by a car, but not by a person.
Motion detector. Digital. Purdue's my girl. I love Purdue. I'm Purdue. Okay, look at that. Anybody see my necklace?
Yeah.
It was actually made by Purdue. She made it from scratch. And it's a bracelet, but I figured out it also makes a choker. So I've been wearing it as a bracelet and a choker. Thank you, Purdue. I love it. Yeah. She's so talented. She can do it all. She's brilliant. She can cook. She makes beautiful jewelry. She's awesome.
I look up to Purdue. I do.
I love her.
And I look at you because obviously you're a little bit older than me. And I look at you like maybe an aunt. Because you two I call all the time.
Listen, we do not discuss age.
I didn't say an age, but I'm just saying we're pretty close in age, but you're old enough to be my sister or maybe an aunt. And those are people I like to talk to when I've got to talk to somebody. Deb and Miss Purdue are great women. They got beautiful souls, and they're easy to talk to. And they both will get my rear end if they feel like I'm doing something wrong. And I know they will. Everybody does, honestly. If I do something wrong, I expect somebody to correct me. I'm not a kid, but people do make mistakes. And if I don't catch it, I hope somebody else does. It brings it to the forefront.
Yeah. Yeah.
There we go. Let's see what we got. Diane's. Who's that? I've never seen that name.
Vin and Queries is my favorite person right now because they say I don't look over 35. I love you.
You see, I had to go get my ears lowered today because my age is starting to show. It shows on my chinny chin, but I don't want it showing in my head. Diana said, it's a crying shame mentioned you in their chat the other night and said to say hello to you and well wishes. Should everyone see you? Just passing that along. You are missed.
Yeah.
We had a discussion about that, and we're not going to go there.
Okay. I'm going to read Kay's comment. Kay says, for people who think they were so hard on poor little old man Logan, how hard were they? By all rights, he should have been charged felony with a firearm. Where can you get 10 years for that alone? It's a valid point, Kay.
And they only charged him with violation probation, which could have been that he was driving while unsuspended. They could have
Yeah.
violated him for having firearms. We just don't know unless you pull the actual PCA, the probable cause for his warrant for his arrest.
Right.
And SP 74 says a signature is something done not necessarily to the crime. And
Say that again.
Let me go back. A signature is something done not necessarily to the crime.
A signature is something that a perpetrator does every time. That's his signature. It's the way he does it every time. That's what a signature is. The staging is something you do at a crime that's done to cover it up, just to make it look like something it's not. And posing is something that a murderer does that they emotionally fantasized about, something they have to do that didn't really have anything to do with the murder. That's what posing is.
Sorry, guys, but Blade did a bad thing on the floor, so I'm cleaning it up.
You might be thinking about an MO, modus operandi. And so maybe that's
Did you guys hear me on that?
That's different than a signature. A little.
Blade peed on the floor, so I had to clean it up real quick, guys.
Oh, no.
And he never does that.
Well, he's probably been trying to tell you he needs to go out.
Well, I take him out right before I go live every time.
Yeah, okay.
And he usually will come up and sit right in front of me and stare at me like, I got to go potty, Dad.
Yeah.
And he didn't do it. Go ahead. All right, I'm done.
Yeah.
Ouch. All right, I'm back. Vid Inquiries, good to see you. Digital says...
Can you mention too that Randy is doing another walk and let people know? I won't be able to attend because I have a bridal shower that day, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, but unfortunately that I won't be able to go, but I'm encouraging everyone to go.
Yes, July 1st, 1 p.m., Delphi, Indiana. We're having another memorial walk. We're going to meet at the Freedom Bridge parking lot, which is just 30 seconds from the courthouse, basically. So if you guys know where the parking lot is for Freedom Bridge, we all meet there around 1 o'clock. And what we do is we all gather, talk, and do all that. Then we all slowly walk up the trails until we finally get to where we had a memorial set right at the 505 and the 501. We go there, and we usually lay more stuff there, and then we walk ourselves down to the trail or to the bridge. And I'm still not getting on it. I don't care if they fixed it and did everything they did to it. I'm still not getting on it. No.
It's really different now. I mean, the rails and everything is solid. Purdue and I walked out to the other end, to the halfway mark where it's. I got to say, I was no way would I have gotten on that bridge.
It's superstitious to me because of what happened.
But Purdue did it before it was before they changed half of it.
And I'll let you all know now where they stopped the new part of the bridge. If you hop over that rail, you're on private property. They made it to where it's private property. It belongs to the Weber, or Weber, however you want to say it. It belongs to them now. It belongs to them now. And I suggest nobody go over there because the gentleman that lives there is not very nice at all, especially if you're a female. He's got a problem with females, and a lot of people don't understand why. You know who I'm talking about. So me and you talked about that the other day. We want to take a deeper look into him.
Yeah.
Because he's off.
Yeah. Digital says that Jimmy Duvall and his daughter have my attention this week. Well, one of the witnesses did say that Bridge Guy looked somewhat like the picture she saw of Jimmy Duvall. And if you look at Jimmy Duvall's picture, I mean,
he looks like Bridge Guy.
Yeah. They could be
and
brothers.
Jimmy Duvall was a convicted sex offender.
Yep.
And I don't think anybody knows who his daughter is, but I'm not going to mention it on here.
Yeah.
All right.
And we don't need
CJK, agree. Move them a few feet and poses the body as per some rumors. No signatures, in my opinion. Like I said, a signature could be the way he killed him. That is their signature. Just like with Garrett Kurtz, his signature with Nicole and Ray Harnish was strangulation or asphyxiation, which is either they strangled him or he strangled him with a rope or a cord.
Well, we can call that a signature because he has a history of killing people by strangulation. That's why it's called a signature. It's something a person does every time.
The same way.
Yeah.
Just like Ted Bundy, he did the same thing. He had a specific signature to his murders that they knew it was the same person every time.
Right. But unless we have proof that Richard Allen has killed before and did it in the same way, then we can't say that's his signature because
we just don't know.
What is. Right. But we can say that he staged or posed, one of those two, maybe both.
Right. Little one, at speculation room, the phone was found on the opposite side of the creek from the kill site. The phone did not go. Yes, well, I'm going to let you know right now, little one, you're wrong on that one too, because the phone was allegedly found within a few feet from the girls. It was never found on the side the Webbers live on. RA's motive was to unalive them. But what was the reasoning? Was he having a fantasy, or what was the circumstances that led him to do this? Little one, staging, yes, could be moving the bodies. Staging could have been throwing the clothes, the tennis shoes in the creek.
Staging could have been whatever he did to the girls to make it look. If it was staging, then he was trying to make it look like something that it wasn't. But it could have also been that he was posing it because that's what he had fantasized about.
Right. At least Boston, besides that, it was basically walking distance, at least in our day when kids were outside more often. It's not like that anymore. When we as kids, we could leave our windows open, the doors unlocked all night, and we didn't have a problem. You know, you better have your ass home by the time those street lights came on. That's all I know, because my mom would stand out on the porch and yell me and my brother's names, and we'll be a half mile away and we can hear it. That means get home. Then of inquiries. These sickos knew exactly where to hide them, so nobody would find them through the search. I'm still stuck on why people were on the private drive up near the house and did not see them bodies laying there, because you could see directly down to the crime scene from there. And we did the experiment 2 times when we were out there. Somebody up at the top of the private drive, and they could see us down there. So
I don't know. I do know that when it was said that someone saw Libby, the bodies in the water, I think what it really was is they saw Libby's shirt in the water. When I was talking to Becky, she said that Jacob Johns is the one that was looking and saw the deer, and then he saw Libby's shirt, the tie-dye
across
shirt.
The creek on Weber's side, yes.
Right, but when people heard that he saw her shirt, they assumed it was on her and assumed he saw the bodies. He didn't.
Well, we all know
that's not what he saw at first.
From what was said for the last 6 years, that Libby was basically half nude, laying on the ground, covered up with twigs and leaves and stuff. Part of her body was to try to conceal her.
Yeah. And so he saw her shirt in the water, and then I think when that got passed, like the old telephone game, when that got passed down, somebody along the line radioed in and said, is it true that, so-and-so said they found the girls in the water? No, they found the girls' shirts and clothes in the water.
You're talking about John Weaver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
What was I getting ready to say? CJK, and that carving might have been there before that day, unrelated to the murders. True, but that letter, from my understanding, was the F with the slanted arms on it. And I did some research on that. That is a Viking symbol, which means on your way to good riddance, or on your way to the other side means to the other side of life when you die.
Yeah. SP 74. I want to try to make this clear. He says, what Ives meant by signatures was that things were done to the victims that were beyond what was needed to kill them. That's called opposing. That's
called overkill.
That's the whole point I'm trying to make, is that is not a signature. That is called posing. So thank you. I think that's what Robert Ives meant. I agree. I think that he meant that, but it's not a signature. Unless he's killed before and they seen that that's one of his signatures. But that was posing.
There's Kay. First time I've seen her in here.
Oh, no. I read one of her comments.
Is this the one you read?
No.
All right, this is Kay. Sorry, but I'm having a hard time giving any credibility to Muddy and Bloody Witness, because who, after seeing someone in that condition on that day, knowing what happened in those woods, wouldn't tell Ellie right away? I totally agree, Kay. Totally agree.
Yeah. Kiwi, are you talking? I'm wondering if you're talking about the video that Thomas Frost showed where part of the bark was gone on the trees. Kiwi says, would law enforcement have taken the tree with the carving for evidence? My first thought when I saw that video was, did they do that? But then I looked in the video when I saw there was more than one tree, and I started thinking about our woods, and beavers will do that.
Yes.
They'll take the bark off halfway up. So I think that's
and go make their dam with it. They'll use it. They'll build their dam.
But yes, if there was a carving in that tree that they thought was related, they very well could do that.
Now, Randy Gravitt did a video about a month ago where he walked back up the 505 and found the carvings in the tree. You could tell those carvings are pretty old. And just like Thomas Frost just commented, he said, I've seen the initial carved in the tree and it's at least 15 years old. I would have to agree. Because when I saw them, they looked pretty old.
And I also have heard a rumor that Beyond Highbrow guy paid someone to do some carving so that it would validate something he said. So I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard that. So again, take that with a grain of salt.
Mustang says, I think he will plead out if they take the death penalty off the table, especially if someone else is involved. I mean, he's had how long since the PCA hearing, and they still haven't arrested anybody else? What is actually going on here? And the PCA hearing was back in November. Here we're not 7 months later, and they still haven't arrested somebody else. Now it's starting to make it look like a lone wolf type situation. James Powers, prosecutor. The prosecutor has to turn over all evidence in a timely manner, whether that is a gag order or not. True, but you don't understand. Prosecutors get away with so much. It's up to the defense to put the pressure on the court to make the prosecutor turn it over. You think the prosecutor's just going to turn it over at will? No, he's going to push it and push it, push it until the judge orders him, or she's going to end up finding him in contempt. It was what'll end up happening. Purdue. I like Dev's story. If RA is a lone wolf, if KK indirectly involved, that could be other bad actors involved, maybe even with a meth link. See, we've been talking about that. The Keegan Kline thing's starting to fade. It's starting to fade away. But then again, what's so weird is when they filed their motion last week that he was just going to keep the guilty plea. Look, here we got just not even a week later, you had movement in the Richard Allen case. I mean, everybody says that's not coincidence, but what if they set it up to do that, for intentionally to throw people off?
Yeah, I think that he abducted them, and I think he committed the act. I think that there are others, or another person, or other people that could possibly be involved in why they took the girls, catfished them to go there. That's
Do you think his wife and daughter knows anything or suspected anything?
no. No. I mean, they might have subconsciously suspected something, but then once he said, well, I went and told him I was there and nothing happened to him, I'm sure they thought, okay, it wasn't him.
He's in the clear.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think they were involved in any way. I think we're going to find out that it's true that she was gone to Peru or whoever her mother is. She was taking care of her mother at that time, and he was alone. And he was alone, so that gave him an opportunity to freely do whatever he wanted to do and clean up afterwards.
Didn't KK also have another account? Hannah something, was it Rodell or Hannah? What's that account that Hannah?
Are you talking about Hannah Rostel?
Rostel, that's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
According to Alex, that was just some other person that had nothing to do with it.
Okay.
That's what he said. I don't know. I'm just saying according to Alex. And that's Alex Voorhees for you people that don't know.
Boston Christian, yeah, you're talking about the tree that Randy Rabbit went and filmed. It's off the 505 path.
Yeah, I remember Randy doing that.
Yeah. If he plead, he would have to disclose everything. Don't think so. If he's smart, he better just start spilling the goods, because the lethal injection's not, well, they haven't put nobody to death in Indiana in how many years? Because they can't find a company to get the chemicals from. That's their excuse.
Maybe they should be like Idaho and bring back a firing squad.
All right, Lockwood. This is Deb from True Crime Notebooks, who used to be a former host on It's a Crying Shame. And she hasn't shown her lovely face in a while on YouTube, so I invited her on because she's well versed in this case, and she's been working at it nearly 6 years. And me and her collaborate just about every day on things. We exchange ideas, we throw stuff at each other, and we talk about it. So
yeah, and we have different opinions. I mean,
yes, everybody does. We don't agree, that's fine. Right. You know, it's not a reason to get in an argument over a damn theory or an opinion.
Yeah. I think that the difference is in why we're doing it, what we're doing, and that our heart is in trying to help to straighten things out, or trying to help, bring light to this case and to others. I cover this case. I've covered the Flora case. I have a timeline on Flora. Video that I did recently. Brian Koberger. There's been a lot. I think I'm the first person that came out with a potential that Brian Koberger had committed other murders like that. We looked into that, and I went live with Sleuth, and we talked about that. So,
what do you think of him filing a motion to get the cameras out of the courtroom?
I think
they've been in there the whole time, and all of a sudden now he don't want it in there.
Yeah.
Come on, dude.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. He's a piece of work.
Let's get through this real quick. Hannah said they could have asked about the shack. Yeah, there you go. That's what we were talking about earlier. Hannah said they could not ask about the shack CP or DG during the Patty interview. Mm-hmm. That's what I was referring to. I didn't want to bring the names up because I don't want to speculate that there has anything to do with this, because I don't believe they did. But some things do surround one of the individuals that could possibly lead the reasons why this happened. I'm just saying it's speculation. It could be one of the theories, because we know meth, sex trafficking, CSAM, bikers, all of them, they're all tied into each other in those areas right there, the drugs and everything. So you can't leave the drugs out of it.
Right.
Nick Hamilton's talking about shit. What shack? This is new. He's new to the case.
Nick is not new to the case.
What shack? The shack. It's either the one on Ron Logan's property or the mirrors.
There's several. I mean, when you're walking towards the Mears Gate, I took a
Yeah,
picture of it. To the right, there's like a little building that the roof has come off of.
next to the old farm equipment, right there up against the fence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's several. Who knows? I mean, was meth being cooked out there? Probably. I think so. They definitely think they partied and went out there and did it there. I just don't know if it's connected or not.
Okay, see now, CJK, we don't know this is true. If so, it's because of the ridiculous hate gospel toward DG. It's true. That's why I'm not going to speculate anything on DG because we just don't know. There is no document showing that he did anything.
Right.
So we can all we can do is speculate. The truth is going to come out if there's a trial.
Roxy, his daughter, did not go to school with Abby and Libby. She was much older than them.
Libby's uncle posted they were found in the shack.
Yeah. Richard Allen's daughter is much older than Abby and Libby.
Yes. Well,
so,
she's same age as Kelsey.
Mm-hmm. But the different, she's older than Kelsey.
Yeah, a few years, yeah.
But Cody Patty did live a few houses down from them at one point. So
with his girlfriend,
right,
from Rick Allen and his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And Abby lived right just down the street.
Yeah, Kay is quoting Robert Ives here. I'm going to read that. She quote, "In fact, there were houses where the crime scene is. There is a house on top of a hill that can actually look down in the backyard. The backyard can look down and see the crime scene." Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Speculation room. There has been several shacks torn down since. I have learned about certain shacks out there that I always found that odd. You got to remember, people, shacks out there doesn't necessarily mean they were making meth. You got to remember, a lot of people hunted out there, and they can use those shacks to field dress deer if they kill them. Or they can hang the deer in there to let all the blood run out of them and then skin them and everything. They can use shacks for that purpose. Or they can use the shack to fillet fish because there's a lot of fishing out there too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and that was another thing. Is not that there were any fish floating around there in February because most of them would have been in a dormant state. But there could have been. But you can, I want to verify, standing on top of the bridge looking down, you can absolutely see fish. I took pictures. We even saw a snake swimming coming towards us. I took a video of it. Right. Yeah. So, and that was that particular day. The water was really clear. So was he doing that? That's probably what he said he was doing. But,
I just don't see that at the time of the year because the creek is up and it's muddy.
Right. Well, in the winter, most of the fish are dormant and they would not be really swimming around. They'd be in a deeper area.
Randy said there was not a shed on Ron Logan's land at all. If I remember correctly, it's further down the creek away from Ron Logan's property, but there was one near there. Sorry, Randy, I thought it was on his property, but I picture the picture now. It's further down away from his property, down the creek somewhere.
Yeah.
All right. And Pam, there are two shacks in the area on Mears and Logan's property. See, now we're getting contradictions. All we have to do is just pull up the Google Maps of the properties, and it'll show us where the at that time where the shacks were at. Lisa, I don't believe meth on Ron Logan's property since neighbor lady was so grateful that she chased away meth people in the cemetery. Which neighbor? You talk about Mears? Because Mears lives down toward the end by they actually live right across the street from the entrance where the girls were dropped off at. And that's a kind of a walking distance from Ron Logan's property. She actually said cabin. Josh Lank, Tara's ex, posted on Facebook on the 14th that the girls were found in the cabin around noon.
Yeah.
Odd.
Yeah, he did. He did.
You already talked about. Let's see.
it'll be interesting when everything is solved, just to see as it comes out and to find out. Because the most important thing, if my theories are way off base, that's okay. I just want to know what the truth is. And, I just want to see whoever did this with Richard Allen, if they did, or if he was alone. I just want to see them, convicted, and I want to see the families have some kind of peace.
Hey guys, it doesn't matter if they're out at the trails or if they're in town, they have to go by the courthouse. They are living this every day. Yes, they're trying to live a normal life. They still do their vacations and things, but there's not a day it's not on their mind. I can guarantee you that. But we're at an hour and 40 minutes, guys. I'm going to end it in about 5 minutes. If anybody has any other questions for Miss Deb and I, we need to get them out now. Otherwise, we're going to start winding down. I know there's a lot of people and a lot of questions we didn't get to, and we didn't expect for it just to run this long. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah.
If my mods will post Miss Deb's Facebook group, her YouTube channel in the chat for me, please.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, and there is my email. If you have any questions or concerns that you need me to answer, feel free to email me. And my Cash App is right here, guys. It helps me out with the channel because I'm trying to upgrade a lot of the stuff that I've got. I want a new camera, the whole works. I don't want to have to wear headsets anymore because I have a desktop and it shows a mic and everything on it, but there's no mic. I don't have any speakers for it or anything to where I could just talk straight into the computer and listen out of speakers. Yeah. I don't have none of that. So I got to do all this.
Yeah.
So
my YouTube channel is not monetized yet. At some point it will be, but my plan is to do what I did on It's a Criming Shame, and then that is to donate the profits from that to various charities that have to do with missing children, missing people.
Mm-hmm. See, I want to, when I start getting monetized, I want to be able to donate to veteran agencies.
That's wonderful. I love that.
Because I've been there. I've been where these guys are at, sleeping on park benches, sleeping on the streets, and it hurts me every time that I'm out and I see a veteran pushing a grocery cart around or living in Tent City out in the woods somewhere. There's a place down in Indianapolis. It's called HVAB. It's Helping Veterans Families, whatever it's called. And I can donate to them. They help them get apartments. They give them clothing. They have a pantry for food. And I would like to donate because they helped me.
Yeah.
That's how they got me back on my feet.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to give back to that organization. So
right. Yeah.
But
so yeah, you and I are both working on getting up to 1,000. I haven't done a live yet. I need to do that. I have a busy life.
I've got about 400 more subscribers to get my 1,000.
Yeah.
And once I do, I will monetize and I will send a link to where I want to donate money to. So
yeah,
that's what I'll do.
I just need to do some lives so that I can get the hours that you have to have.
All right, guys, we're getting to that point where I'm going to go ahead and end this show for tonight. I want to thank everybody for coming out and hanging out with me and Deb. And thank you, Miss Deb, for coming on and hanging out with me for almost 2 hours. Everybody in the chat, love each and every one of you. Until next time.
Love you guys.
Peace out. One love, guys. Good night.